A brand new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast is about to begin. It's time to be inspired by simple and actionable solutions for you and your business. If you're an established entrepreneur or just laying down the first brick of your future empire, the mantra is the same. We will flip any failure into a positive and use it to our advantage. This show is all about turning coal into diamonds. With the right plan and mindset, anything is possible. I'm Jennifer Dawn, your host, business coach, and founder of Best Planner Ever, and I'm here to help you achieve all your ambitious goals. Success is closer than you think. Let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. My guest today is Dave Conway. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jen. How you doing?
I'm so good, and we're excited to have you here. So you guys, Dave is the founder of Conway Consulting, and he teaches entrepreneurs how to achieve any result that they desire. That's right. You heard it. Any result that they desire by developing their mind so that we can all live up to our life's full potential. I cannot wait for our conversation today. Dave, are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, always ready.
Fantastic. Tell us just a little bit of what's your story? How did you get to be doing this work with entrepreneurs, helping them to manifest anything that their little heart desires?
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I first came across personal development when I was 18. My mom brought me to see this gentleman speak. I always say it was the first, last, and only time this man was ever in our city, and that man's name was Bob Proctor. So I count myself very blessed to kind of be exposed. My wife hates when I use that word, exposed, but become exposed to just the power of mindset and manifestation and universal laws. My whole entire life, I've always had this, I don't really see colors or anything like that, but I've always had an intuitive side. One time I heard a person talked about woman's intuition. I was like, I think I have that. I think I have a woman's intuition. Yeah. See beyond. Yeah. So yeah, that was my entry point into personal development industry manifestation. The issue was I was unable to convert it into very much for 15 years. So once I heard about success, once I heard about that a person can become successful, I started to endeavor to become successful. Unfortunately, I spent 15 years endeavoring without any actual success. And then in 2015, I just had this feeling growing inside, and I think many of us can relate to this, that I was just destined for something different, destined for something more, destined for something greater, and I later found out that feeling is actually universal among all mankind. I think we all intuitively feel like we should be doing better, bigger, serving in a greater capacity. Hey, do you feel the same way?
Mm-hmm. I do all the time. I always feel like I'm just driven to do more, to help in a bigger way, to have a bigger impact. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought I was alone in that feeling, but I found later that it's a universal feeling. I think it's actually what makes us human. It makes us strive and make things better. So that feeling started to really, really, it was always like a drum in my head or in my heart. And it started getting louder and louder. And it actually kind of was ruining my life, to be honest, because I didn't know how to direct it. I was a carpenter at the time at a construction company. Spent 2 years with that feeling with no direction. And then this idea in January of 2017 floated into my mind. It was like, I wonder if Bob Proctor's still doing his thing. He helped me so much. He changed my perspective of reality when I was a younger man. I wonder if he's still doing it. So I went online, saw he's doing a thing called the Paradigm Shift, bought a ticket to it. Me and my wife flew down. And Jen, that was without question the most painful weekend of my entire life. I learned that I was what I call now top heavy. So I had a lot of good information in my head, in my conscious mind, but my results reflected that. I may as well have never learned any of it. That started me on a journey. So I ended up buying a license to become a consultant with him. And within 1 year, I was the top selling consultant in the world. It was just complete transformation.
Yeah.
Worth the wait.
Yeah. Okay. And so talk to me a little bit about this being top heavy. When I hear you say that, to me, what I feel is like being in our heads, not in our hearts, and we're kind of out of alignment. But I want to hear what your perspective is. Like when you say top heavy, what does that really mean?
Yeah. So our conscious mind, it collects information like our memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know something. Like I could say a word to you, tree, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, I know that," right? Like you know
Mm-hmm.
that. Or there's a book in the world called Think and Grow Rich. Where it's like, "Oh yeah, I know that,"
Yep.
or "Oh yeah, I've read that." Okay, that's fine. But to understand on an emotional level is a very different story. So we all know better, but yet we don't do better, or we're not empowered to do better. So there's a big disconnect between what you know and what you're actually doing, what you actually believe. And it was almost like that day, it was very painful. It was like a spiritual experience. I actually was living outside my body for about 3 days. And
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like I got this pin, and it was like a water bed above me. And I got this pin all of a sudden. I got to poke it, and it just started downloading
Yeah.
into my heart. And
Yeah.
as it started to flow in, it was very, very painful.
Mm-hmm.
It was very painful. But that's what I mean by top heavy. I think we're hooked on gathering information, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, another word could be, we don't integrate the information.
Right, right. I see this with a lot in my own life and with clients I've worked with where we're trying to think our way out of a problem or think our way to that next level, but we're not feeling our way to that next level. And at least as you're talking, that's kind of what I'm feeling like getting into that feeling system of our body, getting into more of that subconscious mind. I love this stuff like so much because if you've ever like tried to think your way out of a problem, not that thinking is bad, but like you're spinning your wheels, you're just like in your head, you're just trying to think your way out of it. And you get so frustrated when you're just like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get to like that next level or get to that success that I'm seeking?
Yeah, bingo. So whether I basically I missed the memo for those 15 years around two main ideas. The first one was a paradigm. Paradigm is just a multitude of habits fixed in our belief system, mental conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And the second was a self-image. I missed the memo on those two things. And because I missed the memo on those, I was never operating the clear mental picture of what I wanted. So I just was working. The biggest part of my paradigm was that you work hard to get ahead. And by the time I was 33 years old, I was working over 60 hours a week. My physical body was already starting to disintegrate significantly. I was becoming very short-tempered. I would consider myself an angry human being. I was $70,000 in not good debt, like just debt, like not bad debt. And you stop and you pause for a second. You say, "What the hell? I've been around these ideas and growth ideas for 15 years, and yet my whole life is disintegrating." Well, that all came down to my self-image, my paradigm. You can't outwork your belief system. You just can't outwork it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you went to the session with your wife. It was painful. All these things
Yeah.
started shifting and changing for you. And then what happened from there? Like how were you able to then turn that around?
Yeah, so I bought a license there, like an opportunity to facilitate Bob Proctor's programs. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, I was a carpenter, so I started part time, evenings and weekends. So I was what I call a evenings and weekend warrior. So I would
Mm-hmm.
I would do that, and I have kids too, a couple of beautiful daughters. I had a very supportive wife, so she said, "Yeah, do what you got to do." So I worked evenings and weekends, so part time in the mentorship and the coaching. And in the first 6 months, yeah, like I would just meet people, I'd message someone, meet them for coffee. And I didn't know, I Zoom this, what we're doing today. Like I was a carpenter, I didn't know anything about this world at all. So I'd meet for coffees, and some of those coffees were 2-3 hours long. And some of those conversations ended up where they would join inside of a mentorship for mindset, which Bob ran, like Bob Proctor created, and I just facilitated it. And then 6 months in, I started doing talks, which scared the heck out of me. And that opened a whole new world. I'll never forget it. I earned $400 that day installing a kitchen, $50 an hour. I worked for the 8 hours. And I remember the kitchen. I remember because this day changed my life. And then that night I did a talk and 50 people came, and I worked for 90 minutes and made $20,000.
Wow.
I thought, holy, I said, this is very interesting. That never had happened previous in my life. So I was so conditioned for time for money, opened up a whole new world. And I never stopped
Yeah.
since then. That I got the taste or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talk to us a little bit about, and I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard too, especially for business owners. I've often heard, not all of them by any stretch, but I've had business owners say to me, "Oh, I don't want to hear all that woo-woo, mumbo jumbo, law of attraction, manifesting. Like, I don't want to hear any of that stuff. Like, it's too woo-woo, so it's not like a legitimate business strategy for me to apply to my business and my life." I'm curious. What is your take? What do you say to those people?
Oh, yeah. So my whole life is built upon it. To think that the law of attraction isn't a reality is a ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. The law of attraction is the binding force of the entire universe. So we know through science that, now we didn't always know this, but we know this today, that everything in the universe is energy.
Mhm.
And we know that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So nobody knows what energy is. It's just energy. They say energy is. Some of the greatest minds. What is energy? It is. The same thing for God. It's like, well, what is God? It's like God is the Alpha, the Omega, the creator of all. Like, it's like, okay, well, what is that? Well, and if you dig deep enough, they're going to have to say, I don't know. I really don't know. So everything in the universe is energy. Now, we don't know anything about energy. However, we do know this, that all energy, the movement of all energy is controlled by law. So if a person held their hand out and they held a rock in their hand and they let go of that rock would go down through the law of gravity. Now the hand is energy, the rock is energy, and there's a force that controls that energy. So when you start to think about the law of attraction, we want to understand that this energy operates in infinite levels of frequencies or vibrations. Leibniz is the first person to sort of introduce this to the world. This is about 400 or 500 years ago. He was sitting in his den. I used to have this pen pal, and he was sitting in his den and he was looking around. And as he was looking around, he started to kind of become very curious. He's like, I think everything is the same thing in different form. Now that idea took 200 more years to be adopted or even investigated. And then he said it to his friend, and then his friend started looking around and he was like, I think you're right. It wasn't until another man came along called Boltzmann who proved that everything is vibrating. Everything is actually just atoms that are spinning at a certain rate. And this rate in which they spin controls what they attract. It's like the magnetism, the law of magnetism, the law of attraction, the same thing. The law of attraction is a secondary law. The law of vibration is the primary. So for those 15 years, I was stuck on a certain vibration, totally unknown to my own belief system, the self-images that were operating in me. But I had a head, but that didn't change my vibration. So I was kept on attracting the same things. I'd get up a bit, I'd fall back down. And, people call it living on the hamster wheel. You move ahead, you move back, you move ahead, you move back. Today, I help many, many entrepreneurs, very successful ones that are already multimillionaires, get out of the plateau. I have some clients come to me already net worths of $50 million that have plateaued, right? So as we start to think, you're going to start to realize that everything in this universe is just controlled by law. So to say that the law of attraction isn't a reality is like saying the law of gravity isn't a reality. No, it's an absolute law. Whether our understanding of it, whether people who are teaching it, whether the other people who are even trying to practice it are showcasing the power of the law, that's irrelevant. There is still a law, right? Like if you took a person that had a bow and arrow, like let's say I had a bow and arrow, and I'm trying to hit a bullseye. Well, let's say I've shot 20 times and I'm just not hitting it. Never for a moment would I ever think, oh, the law of gravity isn't real, or the laws of physics that control velocity and power aren't real. No, I intuitively know that I am the one that is mishandling that bow. Exact same thing for the law of attraction. It is unfortunate. I think what's happened to the law of attraction is the same thing that's happened to religions. Great truths, great truths, but people are bastardizing it through their own ignorance, and they're not really showcasing the powers of the information that is inside of it. So I think the same thing's happened to the law of attraction that's happening to religions. It's just getting poo-pooed. And It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be poo-pooed. It's legitimate. It's legitimate.
Right.
This morning I watched a video of the young girl, 21 years old, who made sweet treats. Have you seen these sweet treats? It's like got 3 grams of
No.
sugar.
No.
They're like candies, but they got like no sugar.
Okay.
Yeah, her grandmother, they used to love candy, and her grandmother like got really sick. And she said one day her grandmother said to her, I wish I never ate all that candy, like all that sugar. And it like
Yeah.
did something to her. And she said, I'm going to make a treat that's healthy, not all like chemicaled up, but is a candy. And she invented a thing called sweet treats. That girl, from the moment she started that idea, she put down 50 million, that her company's worth 50 million bucks. She said she would visualize it constantly. At 20, I think she was 25 when she sold it, $360 million she sold it for.
Wow.
Young girl,
Wow.
conceived at 21 and then sold, I think, 25, 26 years old. And
Wow.
it's legitimate. Of course it's legitimate. If you read Think and Grow Rich, he'll talk to you about Edison, Burbank, Ford. They all use the same ideas, all of them. Just because a person's ability to shoot the bow and arrow does not mean that if I suck at shooting an arrow and I don't shoot a bullseye, that does not mean that there aren't laws. It's interesting. We intuitively know this, but for some reason, we don't take responsibility. We don't for our income, for our relationships. We play the blame game with that. We think that there's other outside forces that are governing our life. I know this because I lived like this for 15 years.
Right. And when we play the blame game and we're pointing outside of ourselves at all these other things that are the reason to blame why I'm not where I say I want to be, we give up our power. We really do. We give that power to something else to have power over us. And now we're not in a place where we can actually change it for ourselves.
Yeah, bingo. Like I say many times, if you don't have it mentally, you don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely. All of our coaching that we do, our little tagline is transforming you and your business from the inside out. And that's because we always start with this inner work, because that's where it really starts. And when you find yourself like you were 15 years, like you had learned some of the concepts, but you weren't really applying them. And for 15 years, you had the knowledge, but it didn't really start to affect your life until you really started to apply it. Right? At least that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, bingo. And then to direct it. So that feeling inside of us that we're all destined for something greater, like most of it's very, the most thing we direct it to is getting a cup of coffee and making dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. So very powerful, though, that once you went through a little bit of an awakening or transformation, when you went to that seminar, even though it was painful to go through that, it seemed like that really started to shift it for you. And now look at you, like it sounds like you're just in a great place now and not really going back to that old way of thinking.
Yeah, if we look at it from a financial viewpoint, like my income went from $5,000 a month, and within 31 months, I was over 100 grand every month consistently, like my income. It has never stopped. Last year, 4.2 million. Like it's all thought. This is a thought universe. James Allen said, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind. And evermore he takes the tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys or 1,000 ills. We think in secret, yet it comes to pass. Environment is but our looking glass. If you want to know what's going on the inside, all you have to do is look at the outside. If you want to change the outside, you got to learn. The key word is learn how to change the inside. It works.
Oh, absolutely. And what would you suggest? I know that there's going to be people listening to this and their minds just got blown. They're like, what? So the person who's listening to this, like, what would you suggest as a first step or two that people can start to take to really look at the inside in a different way? Or how can they start to use the power of their minds to really manifest what they want to have in their life?
I think the first phase, you have to get into a fantasy state. You have to what do I want? Like, what do you really want? How do you want to live? Who do you want to be? How much money do you want to earn? What kind of impact do you want to have? Who are you? Are you a person that grows weaker as they progress, like 99% of the world? Or are you a person that grows stronger as they progress? Most weak people weaken as they go along. Are you a person that grows stronger as you go along? Like, who do you want? Who do you want to be? How do you want to live? And even if a person stayed, if they took a pen and paper, and even for the next 14 days, they took 15 minutes a day, people won't do this.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You can have anything you want, and they will not sit for 10 minutes. They're too busy doing something else. So if you take a pen and paper for 14 days, and every day at the top of the paper, like, what do I really want? And you just let yourself write. You're not making a decision, so you don't have to be stressed or anything like that. Just let the ideas, just let them flow out. What you'll find after 14 days is if you go back and you look at them all, you're going to see some patterns. And you're going to say, you know what, this one keeps showing up. This one just keeps showing up. Now, every day, start a new, fresh piece of paper. Every day. And you'll find it starts to come out of you. Once you find out what you really want, then you need to make a decision, isolate that one thing. Phase 2, create a clear mental picture of it. Clear mental picture. You see, this was my biggest problem for those 15 years. I knew almost nothing about the imagination. I was what I call imaginatively disabled. I was just a walking left brain. And I never used it to create images. And I believe today that if a human being is operating without a clear mental picture of something in their head, they're wasting time, like they're wasting a life. They're isolated to their own mind. They're not leveraging the universe to start to produce. So then you build a clear mental picture, and then you ask yourself, who's the man, woman, or person that is living that way? And you just keep feeding this idea into your mind. Just keep pumping that image into your mind over and over. In time, it'll start to take over your behavior. There'll be opportunities will start to open up for you, but you have to have the courage to step through the opportunity. You know, this young girl that I was hearing about with sweet treats today, she went into the same Safeway 50 times. 50 times she went in there. The same one. Most people quit after their first no.
Yeah.
She knew she had something.
And she did. She had something big.
You know, and I don't think many people know how special they are.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think we know. Like, I think it's the saddest thing.
Yeah. And when you're talking about this and I'm thinking about it and just the process of sitting down and getting really clear on what you want and then not being afraid to actually like believe it could happen and start to take action towards it. But even just thinking about what do you really want? Like when I feel my body and I think about the things that I really want, it like lightens and I feel better. And it's almost like you feel that emotional state just starting to elevate. And when that elevates, it's like your vibration is elevating with it. I'm assuming that's what's happening. And so, Dave, is that what is happening when you're having these beautiful, powerful thoughts? Your vibration is elevating because the emotional state is elevating. And is that putting you then in a space where you can now attract those things into your life?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that there's only 2 states that a person lives in. Either you're inspired or you're uninspired. And the word inspiration is in spirit. You're in the spirit of something. So if you think to yourself, like, how many truly inspiring people do you come across in a day and in the general public? And you'll have to answer, not many.
Not many.
Well, that's right. Well, thought is in spirit. Thought is a spiritual seed. Thought is a spiritual seed. And all energy goes from a higher vibration down into a lower vibration, the physical world being the densest vibration.
Yeah.
So when you start to change your thinking and you start to entertain bigger ideas, what starts to happen is those alter your frequency. Now, the first place the law of attraction takes place is in the mind. Because as the thoughts start to become clear and clear in the mind, they'll start to attract other thoughts. You see, clarity isn't something that you get like in 1 second. Clarity is an ever evolving thing. It's like a refining process over and over. And you have to just keep visiting the ideas over and over and over, keep visiting them over and over and over. And as you revisit them, they're going to start to shape you. Your awareness will start to change. You'll start to attract different things. Not all these things will be great. Some of them will be terrible, just to push you out of your comfort zone, wake you up from an ignorance that you have. I think intuition delivers us ideas sometimes where failure is actually baked right into the idea itself. just so that you learn, so you can push out of an ignorant state to a higher frequency.
Right. You said something so key there, because you need to learn it, right? It's so important to learn it on that path to get to where you desire to be. But if you don't see it for what it really is, I think sometimes people get very discouraged because they don't realize it. They don't see the blessing in it, the gift in it, the opportunity in it that's presented, because it is a challenge, it is a failure, when it's actually exactly what you needed, right?
That's right. That's right. So when you get that image, you have to remove the idea of failure. Napoleon Hill said the word impossible should be removed from the English dictionary because it's a useless word. It shouldn't exist. If you think about the laws too, back to like maybe some people that are naysayers of it, well, think of it like this. Let's look at it through this perspective. So Albert Einstein discovered a law called the law of relativity. And he did not create the law. He just became aware of it. Since he's become aware of that law, we have been perpetually becoming aware of how to harness it and the depth of which it operates. Very, very similar. I think before The Secret in 2006, it was said that about 2% of the world had ever heard the word law of attraction. This is all very new. Now, it's new in its present form, but these ideas are actually very old.
Yeah.
Very old. There was great teachers 100 years ago and further that there was like a bit of an enlightenment around the time of Albert Einstein. There's a huge enlightenment in consciousness in the human race. So just because you've heard of a law doesn't mean you're operating it, right?
Yeah.
The law itself has infinite levels of awareness to understand, and the operating of it has infinite levels of awareness to understand. And you can refine it. I love the word refinement because it's a word that says you're in possession of something. You just need to refine it. And I think that if I know for me, gives me a lot of courage.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not missing anything. I just need to get better.
Right. I've seen that even in my own business so often, where the clarity comes in and you take action and the business changes, and then the process repeats itself, and you just kind of keep refining. Sometimes I've looked back and I'm like, wait a second, why didn't I just have this idea 4 ideas ago? But it is a process, right? If I'd had that idea then, I wasn't in a place for that idea, the future one, to really be the right idea. It is this process of refinement and just getting clearer and clearer and clearer. So I love the way that you describe that. So very, very cool. Talk to me a little bit about the experience when you kind of had the painful experience. I think that sometimes that can scare people a little bit, of like, oh, I don't want to go through anything that's painful. I've been through so many different things in my life that were painful that I would not wish on other people. However, looking back, it was a life changer. It was a game changer, that going through a painful experience actually set me on a different trajectory, which was actually closer to where I wanted to be and who I could be. So talk to us just a little bit about the pain of that experience, and how do you see it now looking back?
Yeah, well, it was a beautiful pain, I guess, in a way you could call a wonderful pain. I don't know how to say it. But basically, when you spend 15 years of your life trying to go somewhere and be something and create something and never being able to produce it, and then to discover why, it hurts. Like, there's no pill that stings the most, is the honesty. But why do people lie? Because they don't have courage. People lie because they don't have courage for what will come if they say the truth. They don't want to take responsibility for it. That's why people lie. Lying is fear. Lying is a result of fear or lack of courage. And when I had this experience, honestly, I thought I died and gone to heaven, because when I saw Bob at 18, I wanted to do what he did. I obviously didn't understand that I could have. I didn't really understand what he was saying. So when there was an opportunity to do it, I couldn't believe that this was open to me. And what happened was I actually went outside of my own body for 3 days. And when I flew home after that weekend from Los Angeles back to Canada, I couldn't believe I used to live the way I was living. Mm-hmm. Now, what was interesting was life was still moving in, like all the same people were still calling. I still lived in the same home. I still had all the same clothes in the closet, like Everything was still the same. All the same stresses were still there. I just was like hovering on something. I just could not believe that this is what I was doing with my life. And I made a decision. I'm changing everything. And I caused a lot of disruption. I caused a lot of conflict. My business, my construction, it totally collapsed. I started attracting lawsuits, which was crazy. Never happened, or never happened prior or anything like that. It hasn't happened since either. Just crazy what started to happen. Everything started to completely collapse in my world. My whole world was collapsing. Took a lot of courage, took a lot of direction from Bob because he became my mentor, took a lot of direction from him. But I believe today that any human being on this planet with the right direction can transform every single area of their life within 18 months. I'm talking financially, health, mental health, friends, home, vehicles, the whole thing. Complete revolution where nothing of the old life is left. I truly do believe that. I've done it myself and I've helped a lot of people do it. I've seen a lot of people do it. But you got to be able, you got to let go. Like I had a podcast lady just about 3 years ago who asked me, did you ever doubt, have you ever doubted since May of 2017? I'll say, to be honest, no. I said, I was out in the dark for 15 years. I said, I knew what I found. I said, I've never doubted it. Have I been scared? Yes. Has it been challenging sometimes? Sure. But I never doubted it. I knew I had something special. I knew it. Yeah. And I wanted it. I wanted a different life. I plateaued at $250,000 a month, which this is first world problems now. So I plateaued there. And it was interesting because when I got stuck at that level, I had a goal, but I was stuck. And how did I know I was stuck? Because I was uninspired. I was getting very bored. And I ended up calling my mentor. I flew down to Arizona, Arash, and I was with him for an hour. And he said, I can tell you why you're stuck. I said, tell me. He said, you're afraid to lose what you've got.
Ooh, that's powerful. Yeah.
He said, I remember when I met you, it was wholesale. Like your whole life could have went, and that's true. Take it. I don't like it. Take the whole thing. Have it for free. Go. I don't want nothing to do with it. But when you start building up a pretty successful life, you can hit the comfort zone. Yeah. And then now you have to, you're a, relatively speaking, I want to be really clear about this. Now you're like a bit of a somebody, or you have a few dollars in your bank, or you have that nice car, you live in that nice house, and you start getting comfortable, and then you get afraid and you stop taking the same risks and you stop dreaming and you start managing what you've created. It's the death of all entrepreneurs. I said, okay, I'm going to risk it all. Within 3 months, my income went from $250,000 at over $500,000 a month like that.
Wow.
We plateau. We can get comfortable at any level. You can go down to your downtown today. There'll be homeless people sleeping. They'll be fast asleep on the sidewalk. They don't like their results, but they're comfortable with them. How do I know I'm in trouble? When I'm uninspired. That's how I know, because my vibrations are low.
Yeah. Wow, Dave, so powerful. Really, I'm so grateful that you've been here and sharing your story. And I know that there's going to be so many people who are listening to this that are going to hopefully have a little bit of an awakening of their own when they hear your story, they hear what you're talking about. I resonate with all of it so much. I've been using these laws in my own life for many, many years. And I truly believe in my heart that we get back what we put out, like law of attraction, we get what we put out. And sometimes when we are, stuck in some of these belief systems that maybe we don't even really consciously recognize, and we don't realize that we are putting some of these things out, like I can only earn money by working really, really hard, or whatever that belief system is for you, that when we start to really set our intention to open ourselves up and know what's really going on, that the information comes, the information finds us. So I'm just super excited that you're here with me today, because I know there's people that needed to hear this and that we're helping right now. And that makes my heart very happy and very full, that there is a different way to live, and that when you set your intention to change, you can change. And even if it might hurt, it's okay. when you talked about, you had this big experience and then all this stuff started falling apart. I call that the beautiful destruction, where it's just like all that stuff starts blowing up, and it is a beautiful thing because it's like we need to get rid of all that old stuff so that we can bring in the new. And it can feel like a crisis, and it can be a little bit frightening, but it's so very necessary when you're going through this process of transforming yourself and really stepping into who not just you maybe want to be, but who you can be and who you have the possibility to be.
Yeah, bingo. And if you think about it, like, let's say there's a sports team that is not doing well. Let's say they're at the bottom of the league or something. These teams, they get new coaches in.
Right.
So they'll get a new leader. Same with companies. They'll bring in a new CEO to transform it. Right. Yep. I don't know if you remember when they canned Steve Jobs, and then it wasn't good, and then they brought him back, right? It's like, well, that's how they change things. And in a strange way, if you think about it, who else is running your business but you?
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest problems of the deceptions of an entrepreneur is that they try and bring people on so that they become free. You got to understand something. It is no one else's job on earth to get you free but you. Right. And I think today, true freedom for the entrepreneur, it's not money. It's being surrounded by professional people that can do their job. Mm-hmm. That's freedom. Because if you have to keep going in all the time because someone doesn't have capacity to perform, you lose freedom. Money come, money go. But time, it just goes. So it's the capacity in people, I think, is the biggest part. And I think that's where freedom comes for people. Being surrounded by people that are improving all the time and are professionals at what they do. That's how you'll break free.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And I would love to keep talking with you about these things because it's just such a great, powerful conversation. So I want to leave everybody with one of those tidbits that you just said. It all starts with you taking ownership. This is about you. It's not everybody else. And until you really and truly understand that if you want to change it, you have to own it. That's really where it all begins. And you did it. You took ownership and you changed it, and you're living proof that it absolutely works. So Dave, thank you for being being here with me today to have this really, really powerful conversation. I so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would you mind taking just a quick minute? Because I know right now there's a lot of people who are like, who is this Dave Conway guy? Like, I gotta check him out a little bit more. So where can people find you?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram. I hang out on there. So it's Conway Consulting. Just go Conway Consulting on Instagram. You can also go to the website, www.conway.consulting. So www.conway.consulting. On the Insta and on the website, there's a free 21-day manifestation challenge on there. Basically, it's totally free, and I help you build a clear mental picture, and I'll help you start to increase your ability to concentrate.
So beautiful. All right, you guys, we will put Dave's information in the show notes as well. Please go check him out. Clearly from the episode, you can tell that he's just got so many great things to offer that can help you in your business and in your life to manifest what your heart truly desires. All right, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Dave. Everybody else, you guys get out there and have a happy, productive day. Bye, y'all. I hope you found today's episode of the Happy Productive Podcast inspiring. Every successful business is formed by a set of small, consistent, and attainable steps. If you want to learn more, come visit us at jenniferdawncoaching.com to take your next step and learn how to meet your business goals. On our website, you're going to find free resources along with links to the life-changing coaching programs that have transformed the lives of so many of our clients, including the Coaching Academy and our Unbreakable retreats. Many of them started their journey by listening to this podcast. That's it. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.